I like it.
All right, cool. So, guys, we're here with Mr. Tal Oran,
Yep.
and basically, he is of Iraqi, Turkish, and Israeli heritage. Are
Yep.
you in Israel at the moment?
I am. Yeah, I'm here in Israel, in central Israel.
Oh, nice. And the commonality that we have is that basically we are both pro Israel, even though we come from the Middle Eastern background, something you wouldn't imagine because I'm originally Iranian. I actually have a bit of Turkish in me as well. My father's Turkish, and I actually quarter Pakistani. And I come from a Muslim background, even though I'm an ex-Muslim now. But then the more I studied the situation, the more I realized that Israel is actually in the right. Before, I used to be like 10 years ago, I used to be like very anti Netanyahu, and I was like, yeah, these Israelis, they're bad people. But then that's what ignorant people think, and it's
Right.
natural to think that way because you go on TV and you see all these dead kids and Gaza being bombed and them throwing stones, and then you would think they're the victims, but they're not the victims. They
Yeah.
chose that life, and they are only victimized because of their own leadership, which is Hamas.
I also think as Israelis, as Jews in general, it's something I've been very critical in my work of recently, and it's something I'm
Mm.
actively trying to combat. I think we've been horrible at our own PR. Like we
Yeah.
don't play the game. We don't play the game properly at all. And I use my color, skin, and my identity as a constant sort of rub in the face to pro-Palestinians and the sort of pro-Islamism, pro-jihadism side to try to explain to
Yeah.
them as like, listen, I come from my family comes from 4 different Muslim countries. All
Yeah.
four all four were ethnically cleansed by Muslims. All four.
Exactly.
I'm a journalist. I never served in the army. I'm a refugee. I'm a descendant of refugees to this country. I'm given no protection under human rights by the Islamic regime of Iran. I'm given no protections as a journalist for creating content by Hezbollah, by Hamas, by the Houthis. I'm
Mm.
not given any. Why is a Palestinian's life worth more than mine? What's the catch here? What am I missing? Is it just because I'm a Jew?
Exactly. So just give me a bit about your background. So you are Iraqi, you are Turkish, but you said you immigrated from Germany. Just explain that whole thing for the audience that don't
Yeah.
know you.
No Germany, but I'll give you
Okay.
guys the background.
Go on. All right.
So
Go.
all four of my grandparents come from different parts of the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather on my dad's side, he's from a group of Jews called the Nashdidan. They were a Caucasus Mountain Jew, different than the Mountain Jews, but they used to roam nomadically around Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Georgia. They came from
Yeah.
predominantly Muslim lands, and they spoke Aramaic.
Uh-huh.
My
Yeah.
my dad's
Aramaic. That's what
mother.
Jesus spoke, right?
Correct.
Apparently.
Yes. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
like the language of the Old Testament and a lot of
Yeah.
Judaism. My grandma on my dad's side, so his wife, she was born in Istanbul, Turkey, and
Mm-hmm.
they somewhere down the line they come from a Ladino background. So they're from the Spanish Inquisition. They ended up in Muslim lands like Istanbul, and then were kicked out of Istanbul as well for being Jewish. On my
Correct.
mom's side, it's the more interesting part, and it's the part that I'm way more connected to. They're actually Iraqi. My mom's father, my grandpa, he is a Baghdadi. He's a Baghdadi Jew as long as we know. So we believe that
Mm-hmm.
he was in Baghdad and his family was in Baghdad since the destruction of the first temple in Jerusalem in the Babylonian exile, where Jews were taken by force from Jerusalem
Right.
to Babylon. And then on his wife, or my grandma, my only remaining grandma who's still alive, she is half Basrawi and half Kurdish. So, but she was
Mm-hmm.
born in Baghdad. So she's half Kurdish Jew. Her father was a Jew who spoke Aramaic from Kurdistan, and her mother was from Basra, from the city of Ur, or Ur Kasdim in
Mm-hmm.
the Bible, where Abraham was from. So I'm genetically as Middle Eastern as it comes. You can see by my beautiful brown complexion, similar to
Yeah,
yours,
yeah, yeah.
Eunice. Um, but so when people tell me to go back to Poland or to go back to the gas chambers or to leave Palestine, I'm like, this is as indigenous as it gets. I am
Yeah.
fully Mesopotamian, fully Fertile Crescent, fully Levantine. There's no ifs, ands, or buts
Yeah,
there.
you're a true Semite, as they say. You're a true Semite.
Genetically, from what I know, as true as it comes. This is what somebody from the land of Jesus looks like.
Exactly. And we actually have a lot of similarities because
Yeah.
I'm quite mixed as well, because both my parents are half. My dad is half Turkish, half Iranian, but then he's Iranian Turk. So he's Azeri, half Azeri and half Turkish.
Wow. So we're
Yeah.
really similar.
And then
Yeah.
my mom is half Iranian and half Indian / Pakistani.
Wow.
So I have like the three, But then I done a genetic test and I had like 5% Scandinavian and 5% Baltic and 1% Native American. And I was like, well, where did that come from? But the important issue we're trying to get at is that, I'm not Jewish. This is what you need to know about me. I'm not Jewish. I come from a Muslim background, but I'm not Muslim. I'm an ex-Muslim. I'm a spiritual person. I believe in God. I just don't agree with Islam as an ideology. I don't agree with any religion as an ideology. I think religions should be understood metaphorically, but each to their own. I don't judge people. You can practice whatever religion you want. However, I do think there is a hatred towards the Jewish community by the Muslim community. And it's also, if you actually read the Quran, it's a very anti-Semitic book. Muhammad was a very huge anti-Semite. He committed genocide on the Jews, and he killed this Jewish community. He killed what was it called?
Khaybar.
The Jewish community of Khaybar. Yeah, Khaybar.
Yeah.
And
The
then
Bnei Quraysh.
he killed the leader of that community, which was this guy called Kanana.
Yeah.
And then he slept with his wife called Sophia the same night he killed Kanana, the leader of the Khaybar community. So
And
that's the type of person Muhammad was.
Sophia, he actually mentally and physically abused. A good friend of mine, Maya, she has a magazine called Mizrahi, Yad Mizrach Mag. She actually just came out with an immensely beautiful, emotional article. It literally made me tear up when I was reading it, documenting in very, very graphic detail the life of Sophia. And it is, let me tell you, it is heartbreaking. The detail of the abuse, both psychological, mental, and physical abuse that this woman went through by the hands
exactly
of the.
Explain what happened to her.
So I don't want to misquote. I don't want to misquote because I'm not a professional on the topic, and I highly recommend everybody read it. But in short, when Muhammad was coming to propagate Islam through the Hijaz and through the Halij, the Jewish communities who had been there predating the existence of Islam for hundreds of years, who had settled in this area, were now having to make all kinds of pacts and having to make deals in order to survive and to not be forced into becoming a Muslim. And so at one point there was in the Quranic narrative, there's a belief that there was a backstabbing that had happened by one of the tribes, and that they caused the battle to happen. They lost the battle. And then one of the things that Muslims did back in the day, actually they do it a lot of times today as well, is that they would kill all the men, behead them, and then take the wives and take the children as slaves. Sophia, because she was one of the most beautiful, was given the option, and she was told by Muhammad apparently that it is her destiny to become one of his 10th wife or his 9th wife. And so she was forced to be his wife. And there's talks about how secretly she would give money to her Jewish family, and she would go visit them in times when Muhammad was not around her. And not only that, at the end of her life, apparently there was a rule. I found out about this by reading the article, that when you were dead, when you were on your deathbed, and you wanted to give your inheritance, you can only give 1/3 of your inheritance to a non-Muslim, which is insane to me considering the fact that the Jews predated the Muslims in that area. But fine. So Sophia, she gave 1/3, her full 1/3 of her inheritance to Jewish people as sort of like this last sign of like, F you, I'm a Jewish woman, and you'll never be able to take that away from me.
Yeah. And I just find this whole thing ridiculous. Look, I know things change over time, and maps change, and populations change, but this idea that it was Palestine before Israel, that's just so historically incorrect. Like, the Jews go back 3,500 years.
So let me show you something
Muslims
amazing.
by 2,000 years in that area. That doesn't mean that things can't change. That doesn't mean that Muslims can't immigrate to that land. But just to suggest that that's Palestinian land instead of Israeli land, it's just so historically incorrect. It's almost unbelievable.
Let me show you two amazing things that I discovered this year that I was brought to this year. I was invited to the city of David, which is our tunnels are under the old city of Jerusalem. Everybody says always there's no such thing as Israel. There's no such thing as Zionism. There was only Palestine. Jesus was a Palestinian. King David was a Palestinian. Moses was a Palestinian. Everybody was a Palestinian. These are coins that I just acquired. Okay. This coin, you won't really be able to see it. It's out of focus on this camera, but this is a real coin from underground in Jerusalem. On the coin itself, in ancient Hebrew, not in Arabic, not in Islam, not in anything that has to do with anybody from the Arabian Peninsula, it says freedom to Zion. The word Z-I-O-N in Hebrew, Tzion. It says
Yeah.
Cherut LeTzion. This is
Yeah.
a coin that unequivocally proves Zionism, even if they're Palestinian. Now, another coin that's on the way that I don't have, which is unbelievable, and I'm going to start carrying this around with me everywhere I go in the world. This is
Sure.
from the Umayyad Caliphate. When the Umayyad came and conquered Jerusalem, they minted one coin that proved unequivocally that this is the land of the Yahudis. In Bait al-Maqdis, which
Mm.
that's how you get the word Al-Quds or Jerusalem in Arabic. Bait
Mm.
al-Maqdis, in Hebrew we call it Beit HaMikdash, the holy house, the house of holy. They minted a coin that says Lalla illallah, which means there's only one God, and on the other side they put a goddamn menorah, proving, even the Muslims who conquered it, proving that this was not their land, proving it.
Yeah.
And I agree
Yeah.
with you, Eunice. It's not that they're not allowed to live here. We're all about living in peace and harmony. That's why 2 million Muslims live amongst us here in Israel. We have Arabs
Mm.
all over here in Israel. We coexist. But this belief that this land is Arab land somehow, or that any of the Middle East is really Arab land, is preposterous. Arabs are new to this region as a group of people. You know, at least the whole wider region. They exist from one portion of land. Same with
Yeah.
Muslims.
Yeah. And look, the thing is, I think we just need one historical fact. I appreciate you bring out the coins and everything, but the fact that Judaism predates Islam by 2,000 years, that's a strong enough argument. Which came
Correct.
first, Judaism or Islam? Judaism. And even the Muslims themselves say we are the last revelation. And Douglas Murray said something very interesting. It was like, if you're the last revelation from God, then why doesn't your societies work? And it's very true. And the thing is, I have a lot of hope for the Middle East because I think like people like Mohammed bin Salman, you see what they're doing in UAE, even Qatar, even though they sponsor terrorists. There's a lot of forward-thinking people in the Islamic world. And I think these are a dying breed. Hamas is a dying breed. Hezbollah is a dying breed. Islamic Republic of Iran is a dying breed. And I honestly think if the Islamic Republic of Iran falls, and as an Iranian, I really hope they do, the Middle East will change forever. And it will be, the Abraham Accords will be signed, the Cyrus Accords will be signed, and the Cyrus Accords would join Iran in alliance with Israel. And hopefully we're going to live in peace for the foreseeable future. And it's just really unfortunate that we have so many brainwashed, brain-dead, uneducated, stupid people that are pro-Palestinian. And, the funny thing is, they will call Israelis the Nazis, but they are the modern-day Nazis. They are the modern-day Nazis. These pro-Palestine people that you go in the protests and they shout at you, that's exactly who they were in the 1930s. Because, believe it or not, if you were in Germany in the 1930s, if you didn't support the Nazis, you were in the minority. And guess who's in the minority now? The pro-Israeli people.
Yeah, and it's it's the lack of education and the racism of low expectations are the two things that take effect here the biggest. It's a lot of these white liberals in the West who believe they know a damn thing about the Middle East. They hold Arabs and brown people to such a low degree of education, of knowledge, of intelligence because they are so racist. And they just think that all of us are the same and we're incapable of picking ourselves out of our bootstraps and doing something with our lives. So they're just like, screw it. It's because of the white Ashkenazi Jews that are in charge of everything. It's like, no. You know who saved my family's life from Iraq? It was Iran. My grandparents were in transit in Tehran. Iranians literally saved my family's life. The only reason that we're here in Israel is because Iran literally flew them from Tehran when they were leaving Baghdad because of persecution, and they flew them to Israel. So who's to blame?
That's because of the Shah. The Shah.
It's because of the Shah. And Iran was
Yeah.
in a totally different position. I mean, when my grandparents were younger, Iran and Israel were best friends. They were very close. There was a lot of trade done. There was a lot of understanding, cooperation. Israelis would travel to Iran on a regular basis. What Islamism and jihadism has done to the Middle East, it's a tale as old as time, but I agree with you, Eunice. I think things are changing. I've seen just in my advocacy in the last year, I've seen Arabs and Muslims from all over the world, whether it's from Iran, which I don't really consider a lot of Iranians real Muslims because a lot of them don't really believe or practice anymore. And even I would even say Iraqis, even a lot of Iraqis are losing that religion as well. They're not really interested in Islam or Islamism anymore. But even people from Lebanon and from Syria and from Egypt and Jordan and all over the Arab world and the Muslim world reaching out to me to say, I agree with you, Tal. I agree on your
Yeah.
harsh stance against Arab people, your harsh stance against Muslim people. And it's not in a perspective of hate, but it's in a perspective of tough love. I believe in the Middle East, we need to speak like Middle Easterners. We don't need to speak in the terms of democracy, and we don't need to speak in the terms of, we don't need to speak in English. In the Middle East, let's speak Arabic. If Arabic is the
Mm.
local language, let's start slapping each other in the face with Arabic, because it's the only way the message goes across. It is the only way that Arabs and Muslims tend to understand what is going on. And the situation is by force, and it's by speaking in Hebrew, we say dugli. It's speaking, direct
Directly.
to your face. Tachlis. We don't beat around the bush, going direct to the point. And if that means I'm going to call you out on your shitty behavior, guess what? I'm going to call you out on your shitty behavior. And I'm going to say that you're bringing shame to our region. You're making our region a mess. You are the problem in our region, not us.
No, definitely, and also, but some of it I think is just by design. This whole Republican versus Democrat, or the military-industrial complex versus the populist, because look, the Middle East was thriving in the 60s and 70s. If you look at Iran, if you look at Iraq, even if you look at Afghanistan, Lebanon, go back and look at the 1960s, 70s, they're all thriving, even Israel. And then guess what happens? President Carter decides that it's a good idea to overthrow the Shah and bring in Khomeini, this radical Islamic cleric. And we all know that to some extent that was to bring down the price of oil. That Iran was getting too powerful too quickly, and you couldn't have that. But look, some of this is by design. You can't only blame it on the local people. There was American and British influence in the region, and they made a huge mistake, and now they are paying the repercussions for it.
Yeah, I'll never ever be able to blame the entirety of the Middle Eastern issues on the locals only, but I do have a serious gripe with Arabs and Muslims in general who
Yeah,
blame all of their problems on Israel and America. Like, no
exactly.
doubt,
It's
no
a bit
doubt.
of both. Look, this is the thing. This is what I've realized. This is what I always tell Iranians. I'm like, yes, they used Islam as a tool to overthrow the Shah. But guess why they use that? Because they know it works. They can't do that in Japan. They can't do that in Russia. They can't do that in South America. But just because they knew Islam works as a tool, they use that tool to basically ruin your societies, and you fell for it. So in order for you to get wiser, you need to get rid of this radical ideology. I have no problem with you being a spiritual person.
Right.
But the fact that America and Britain could use Islam, and Churchill said something very interesting. He said, Islam on a man is more dangerous than rabies on a dog. Can you imagine? And that's what he was saying, that Islam can be like a brain virus. And the more it grows, the worse it gets.
I think the manifestation of Islamism,
Yeah.
I have a really, really hard time since I started doing this advocacy, especially when I meet ex-Muslims, and this is by no way a personal attack on you. I totally respect everything that you've been through in your life that has brought you to the points that you're at. But like, I have a really hard time taking the stance of like all Muslims are bad and Islam is bad as a whole.
No.
I know, I have a Quran right here. I read it sometimes.
So do I. Look, I have a Quran here somewhere.
And I try to read it and understand it. And I know that inside the Quran, it says immensely racist and depriving things about Jewish people.
But it says the same in the Torah, though. Look, the thing is,
and so that's the thing. Yeah,
in the Torah. Look, if you look at the Torah, it says horrible things. If you look at the Old Testament, especially, it says horrible things. If you look at Quran, and that's why I'm anti-religion. I'm a very spiritual person, but I'm very anti-religion, and I believe all religion can act as a brain virus. The problem with Islam is that it's a very militant religion, and it's newer.
Correct.
So Torah and Christianity, they had the opportunity to go through their age of Renaissance and enlightenment and evolve, whereas Islam hadn't had that opportunity. And I think Islam is going through its own Renaissance now.
I mean, I hope, and that's what this is what I see, like what you were just bringing up, is like a lot of people who subscribe to Islamism, or just by virtue of the 2 billion people who are part of the Muslim Ummah, you see a lot of times that there's just this bit of brain rot. It's like you can't think for yourself. You can't come up with your own ideas. And you almost feel like you're in a cult. Like you have to think like the rest of the group. And I always say this to Muslims. It's like, have you no independence? Have you no original thought? Have you no ability to use your own brain to come up with your own ideas when you see something definitively wrong? I mean, when you see Muslims and Arabs killing each other in the millions year after year, the only thing you're willing to call a genocide, or the only thing you want to speak out about, is Palestine? That's the only thing that's
Exactly.
interesting to
Speak
you?
about the 500,000 Yemenis that you had died in Yemen.
Or
Speak
let's
about all
talk
the
about the half a
Somalis.
million Syrians, or the
Exactly.
300,000 Lebanese, or the 580,000 Somalis in Sudan. Just because Arabs don't see them as real Arabs because they're black, and Arabs tend to be
No,
very racist a
nobody.
lot of times. Those
Yeah.
people, those people, Somalians and Sudanese people, they live and die by the Quran, and they live and die as Arabs. 99% of them believe in their heart that they're Arab, but Arabs do not see them as Arab because they're black, and that drives me crazy because they never talk about it. Like I've
Mm.
never seen a Muslim person even be able to quote the numbers of how many people are dying there. It drives me nuts. It's like, but they know to say that 42,000 people have been killed in Palestine, in Gaza, without making any distinction between combatant, woman, child. Yahya Sinwar is literally on the list of women killed in Gaza. It drives me nuts, man. It drives me
Yeah.
crazy.
No, look, the thing is, I just think Muslims don't care when Muslims kill other Muslims. Because, Assad killed
Correct.
almost 1 million Syrians, nobody cared. There are
Yeah.
500,000 Yemenis died in Yemen, and it's a war, proxy war between Saudi and Iran, nobody cares. There was a genocide in Congo, nobody cares. It's only
Nobody
when,
cares.
and look, now there's another war going on, something that not a lot of people are talking about. Almost 500,000 people have died in the Ukraine-Russia war.
Yep.
500,000,
Eth-
10x what died in Gaza. So
Ethiopia
no
as
one's
well,
on
by the
really
way.
talking about that either.
Ethiopian civil war, it's
Mm.
literally up to 600,000 at the highest estimates at the moment. That's happening today. Like that's going
Yeah.
on in Tigray right now as we speak. Again, Sudan, since the beginning of 2024, 50,000 people were killed in Sudan,
Mm.
580,000 in Somalia in the last 20
Mm.
years. But there's no, and if you ask a Muslim, is that a genocide? They'll be like, no, it's not a genocide. They say it's
Eh,
because of intent. I'm like, okay, so if Palestinian population in 1948 was 700,000 and now it's 6 million, that's a
mm.
genocide? They'll always they say, yes, that's a genocide. It's like, how does that, your genocide goes backwards if you're Muslim? It doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense.
So look, the thing is, when people say genocide, I'll be like, Israel. If Israel wanted to commit genocide, they could have literally ended this war on 7th of October. They could have nuked Gaza. They could have nuked
Correct.
the West Bank, or they could not even nuked. They could have carpet bombed the whole place. They could easily take out 2 million people. They have the military capacity to do that. Why didn't they do that? Because genocide suggests you kill an ethnic race just because they are that ethnic race. That's just not true. Otherwise, Israel is the worst at committing genocide.
The
Like
worst.
literally the worst possible
And
candidate.
their theory, Eunice, is,
Yeah.
and when you get down to it, you say, why hasn't Israel done it yet? If they wanted
Mm.
to so badly, and you guys always say that Israel hates the hostages and doesn't care about the hostages, they're not trying to bring them home. It's like, if Israel, their theory is that we're so evil, that we're so bad, that we're literally enjoying just abusing Palestinians. Like that's literally what it comes down to. I'm like, that's the
Yeah.
core of Islamic brain rot, that you can't think for yourself. You see, you really think that we have nothing better to do in our lives? The country that's leading in tech development, the country that's leading in farming irrigation, the country that's leading in aerospace engineering, country that's leading in
Medicine.
saltwater desalinization. You
Yeah.
think that we have nothing better to do in our lives than to box Gazans in and bomb them all day? That's what we enjoy doing for fun. It's like,
Yeah.
how
No, but
deep
no
is
one
your
can
brain
answer this
rot?
question. That is a brain rot. No one can answer this question. For those of you that think Israel is committing a genocide, answer this question. Israel has the military capacity to wipe out Gaza and the West Bank in less than an hour, whether it is with nuclear bombs or whether it is just by carpet bombing them. Why haven't they done that already? Why haven't they wiped out all Palestinians already if they're committing a genocide? Why hasn't it taken them a year to do such a thing? You can't answer that question because it's not a genocide. And you're right, because it is a brain rot. But then you would expect that from the Islamic community because, they're picking sides. They're Muslims. They're picking sides. But then why do you think the white liberals or the people in the West support Palestine so much?
They're bored. And that's really the core of what it comes down to. Eunice, if
Mm.
you have seen in the last year how many times I've been gaslit by white liberals, both physically in person. Okay. And
Yeah.
before I came back to Israel, before, like, a little after the war started, I was somewhere else in the world where there was a lot of European lefties and, sort of white
Mm.
liberal hippies. Uh, You should have seen how many times I was gaslit into conversations. You're doing this, you're doing that. And I counter them with actual facts, and then they just leave the conversation because they're bored. And you realize very quickly that they don't actually care about this topic. They do not give a crap. They have no
Yeah.
care in their bones, in their body about this. They just want to get that dopamine rush off of feeling like they did something virtuous. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's just a
No, I don't
feeling.
think they're
It's just to
bored. I
feel
really
good.
don't think they're bored. I think what it is that is the woke mind virus, is the unholy marriage of the woke and Islamism together. And I
True.
think fundamentally what it comes down to is this left wing, left perspective on the world, where there's the oppressor and there's the oppressed. And they see Israelis as the oppressor, and they see the Palestinians as the oppressed.
The problem is it's racially charged, and they label us with this idea of white supremacists, white colonialism. I mean, Macklemore, he's a person who, God bless his dumb soul, he's the one who kind of projected my career and advocacy forward, because when he put out his stupid song calling Israel a white supremacist state, I was just, that blew my cap, and I made like a 5-minute video just, you know, destroying him piece by piece that went super viral on the internet. And, and
Mm,
and that was like the last straw that broke the camel's back. I think this was in April. I was like,
mm.
I can't keep being called a white supremacist. I can't have people keep calling me a white colonizer. I mean, like,
Yeah.
literally everyone around me, everyone I grew up with, my whole family, everyone's brown as shit. We're all as Arab and as Islamic as possible in our mindset. We're as Middle Eastern as it is, because you white liberals can't acknowledge the fact that Arabs literally colonized the Levant, literally colonized this entire region. Just because you guys don't know that history and you're so racist, you see everybody who's brown as the same exact person. You don't acknowledge Mesopotamian culture. You didn't acknowledge Amazi culture or Coptic culture or
Exactly.
Persian
They're the
culture.
racist. They're the racist. You know why? Because it was actually called the British Mandate for Palestine. It was a colonial power, and the colonial power was called Palestine. So that's how
And
stupid they are, that they picked the wrong team. You
and
know?
Eunice, I have another surprise for you, another coin that I keep
Yeah.
on me at all times. You won't really be able to see it. I don't know. Maybe you could put a picture and post, or for anybody who's
Yeah.
watching or listening to this, you could look it up. Look up the British Mandate of Palestine coin. I've been traveling with these around the world for 10 years in my pocket, okay, because it's
Yeah.
so important. On this coin, it says in Arabic, English, and Hebrew, Palestine. In Arabic, it says Palestine, and in Hebrew, it
Mhm.
says Palestina. And in Hebrew, this is the British Mandate of Palestine coin. All right, Transjordan
Yeah.
was included in this. It says in parentheses Aleph Yud, which literally stands for Eretz Israel, the land of Israel. Even the British and the
Mm.
Turkish and the Arabs, I have unequivocal proof going back 1,000 years that this land was always acknowledged as the land of Israel. Don't come at me with this BS of Palestine.
Yeah.
Don't
No.
come at me with that stuff.
No. The thing is, anyone that has any interest or any true curiosity or any true intelligence, it's not difficult to prove that there was no such thing as Palestine. It was the
Correct.
British Mandate for Palestine. Before that, it was the Ottoman Empire, and then before that, it was the Romans and the Persians and the Arabs. At no point there was a Palestine. There was a village called Palestine, okay, but that was not Palestine. Okay, it was always Israel. Abraham was there, Moses was there, Jesus was born there, and history speaks for itself. And if you just understand basic timeline, you would realize that if Islam came 1500 years ago and Judaism came 3500 years ago, then obviously that land belongs more to the Jews. That doesn't mean things don't evolve, and that doesn't mean things don't change, but fundamentally I just think this is, look, there are two types of people. There are followers and there are leaders, or there are, as they say, there are nails and there are hammers. The same people that used to go on about COVID, oh, wear your mask, take the jab, if you don't, you're going to kill everyone. And the same people that went into the streets and protested Black Lives Matter, we live in a racist society, it's the same people going again for Palestine. These are people that don't understand anything, they have no intelligence, and they just jump on the bandwagon and they just virtue signal, and that's all it is.
And there's a huge issue with the whitewashing of Muslims, of entire cultures and religions. This idea, and we really, all of us as a global community, need to push back on this. I actually agree with you. in a lot of
Mm.
senses about religion. I think organized religion, I really do believe that organized religion is a bit of a cancer to human society. And one thing that I unlocked and learned recently about Judaism, and I would say this, I learned this in the last like 6-7 years of my life, and it helped me with my own faith, was
Mm.
that Judaism is not a religion. We have religious practices, but it's unequivocally, like undeniably, a people group that are tied to a terrestrial piece of land. You can't. It's like a Native American culture. You know, there are elements of it that have now broken into an orthodox, or not orthodox, but a organized religion, which, in my opinion, can be very damaging, especially in a PR perspective. But this
Mhm.
idea that Muslims get to just come out and say Moses was a Muslim and Jesus was a Muslim and Abraham was a Muslim and Adam and Eve were the first Muslims.
Yeah,
We
but that's
all, as
just
a
so
global
stupid.
community, we need to
Yeah.
push back on it, because you can't just come in. Like, why is it
No, but can
okay?
I explain to you this? Can I explain why?
Sure, sure.
Because these Muslims, they believe that all the prophets were Muslims, and hence why Muhammad, as the last prophet, is the last Muslim. So they say, oh, in the Quran it says, God sent thousands of messengers, and Muhammad was the last messenger, and hence why all the messengers that came before him, they were trying to do the same message, and he was the last messenger, hence why Jesus is also Muslim, Moses is also a Muslim. They see everyone as Muslim, which is, look, this is why uh, Islam grew through bloodshed and lies, and the fact that they've tried to force their ideology on everyone. And that's one of the reasons I speak against it, because it's a harmful ideology. It's a bad idea. As you said, I have nothing against Muslims. I have Muslim family members. However, I feel like as a society, we should be able to speak against bad ideas. And just because, I lived in Iran till I was 13, and I saw Islam ruin one of the most beautiful countries in the world. It's like someone that lived under communism. Communism is a bad idea, you know?
Correct.
And if communism is a bad idea, someone that has lived under it and has experienced it and understands it stands at a position to be able to criticize it. Okay, that doesn't mean other people can't criticize it, but as an ideology, it's a dangerous ideology. But even Islam has some good things about it. That's why you can learn metaphoric lessons from religion, like for the fact that they
Right.
fast in Islam. In Islam, they
Right.
fast, right? So that's good. That's good for your system. That's good for your body. It helps you detox. Praying, they pray 5 times a day. Praying, in a way, I see it as meditation and
Correct.
repeating positive affirmations. So
Yeah.
that is, in a way, you can say that's a good thing. They don't drink alcohol. You can say, well, that's a good thing. That's
It's an
healthy,
excellent thing. It's a great thing.
Yeah, so you can say Islam actually disciplines you in many ways. So even Islam, you can take some positives out of it. But that's why I'm not a religious person. I just feel like every single religion is an ideology, and hence why you should pick out the positives, metaphorically, not just from religion, but also from philosophy, also from psychology, from everything. Every idea, you can look at something, you're like, okay, I agree with those things, but I disagree with those things. And I think as individuals, our responsibility is to make our own moral compass based on as much knowledge base as we can, instead of just saying, oh, I'm a Muslim, so I'm going to follow blindly everything the Quran says, even if it says go and behead someone. And I think you just have to be so stupid to think that way.
Yeah, actually, a couple of years ago, I had a really pivotal experience with Islam in India. I was traveling around India, and I came across a Sufi community in Delhi,
Mm.
and I didn't know
Yeah, yeah.
anything about Sufism. I had no idea what Sufism was, and I just found myself completely captivated by this branch of Islam. I had never been, again, I've been surrounded by Muslims my whole life. I've had access
Mhm.
to Muslims my whole life. I've had nothing other than positive experience with Muslims when it's been a one-on-one interaction. Obviously, the jihadi group that has tried to kill me my whole life, Hamas, and my family and Palestinian extremists, that's been horrible. But when it's come to one-on-one interactions, I've had nothing but positive experiences with Muslims.
Yeah.
This Sufism brought me into a new world I wasn't ready for.
They're the ones
Like when
that
I
dance, right? And they go in
and
circles.
they come from your country. They come from Iran. Iran is the birthplace of Sufism. Actually,
Mm.
Sufism came from there and then spread to India. The people who built the Taj Mahal, they were the Mughals, and they came from
Mm.
Iran originally. Now,
Yeah.
Sufism, for those of you who don't know who are listening to this, it's Islam, but with the greatest focus being on love, compassion, and understanding. It's everything that modern day Wahhabism, jihadism, and Islamism lacks, where
Mhm.
those all they think about is the militantness, the aggressiveness, the toxic masculinity parts of it. The
Mhm.
the Sufism, all it focuses on is introspection, meditation,
Yeah.
mythology, and love. And I was so enamored because I saw, I know that this is never going to happen, But if somehow the Islamic world were able to be reformed into Sufism, we'd be living in a world of endless possibilities. I mean,
Yeah.
they're like Christians with the mindset of like loving and accepting everybody, and no matter what you do, it's okay. And there's some great Sufi historical thinkers and and imams and sheikhs who have come in history, who have, they're the ones who famously wrote a lot of poems about love and about a desire to be connected between people, both human beings and Allah. And I think, and the
Mhm.
focus on monotheism, which I think personally is important. And I saw, being exposed to Sufism has made it really hard for me to be able to write off all Muslims and be like, I hate Islam. And I'm not saying that that's what you're saying, and I'm
No,
not
no,
saying
no.
that's what most people are saying, but I have seen what Islam is capable of. But we all need to be extremely critical of it. And it's not racist, and it's not wrong, and it's not derogatory to be critical of our Muslim brothers and sisters and our Muslim neighbors. If we
Mhm.
want to better the world and we want to better Muslims, what's the better approach? To be racist and pretend like we don't expect much from them and they'll never amount to anything and just let them keep killing each other? Or should we look at Muslims and say, hey, I know that you can be better. Let me uplift you. Let me help
Yeah.
you. Let me encourage you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. And Jordan Peterson, do you know him? Yeah, he wrote a book.
Of course.
The second book that he wrote, no, I think the third one. It was like 12 more rules for life. And in the 12 more rules for life, one rule was like abandon ideology. Any ideology, abandon ideology. And Islam fundamentally is an ideology. Every religion is an ideology. If you put yourself so much in a box, whether it is the box of feminism, whether it is the box of Marxism, whether it is the box of Islam, whether it is the box of Judaism, Christianity, you limit your own thinking. As you said, you limit your own creativity, because then you can't think outside the box. You just have
Correct.
to look at these ideas, learn from them, incorporate them, and then disregard the rest. And that's what true creativity takes place. And to your earlier point, it's true. A lot of Muslims are brain dead. Why are they brain dead? Because Islam teaches them that way. Islam says, this is it. That's what you have to do. This is halal. This is haram. You do this, you go to heaven. You do this, you go to hell. And hence why they can't think correctly. Because they're taught in such a black and white way. When they have to realize that life is not black and white. Life is 50 shades of gray. And life is dynamic and life is colorful. And hence why you can't put yourself in a box.
You don't you and this would be my one message for Muslims, is I think it's so important for every Muslim to hear this, is you don't live alone in this world. It's not just a Muslim world. And you know
Yeah,
what? Bigger than that, it's not going to be a only Muslim world. No matter what your imams and your sheikhs are telling you in the masjid, you're
yeah,
not going to be able to conquer this world with Islam. The numbers are
yeah,
also saying otherwise. More people are leaving Islam every year than being born into it. There's people, especially in the West, people are leaving Islam in mass. And what's happened now with the ex-Muslim community, which personally, since the October 7th war happened, the
yeah.
ex-Muslim community, bro, I get emotional thinking about this. What I've learned, like through interactions with people like you, with people like Apostate Prophet, who I've gotten to know on a personal level,
Mm,
Harris Sultan, who I've learned from a lot just on YouTube, people like Infidel Noodle, learning from these ex-Muslims, what they've
mhm.
been through in their process of leaving the religion and unlearning a lot of this trauma. My heart is so deeply entrenched in the ex-Muslim community, and how
Yeah,
I'm so proud of them for being so outspoken and so willing to talk about the horrors that they've been through in Islam. And I think it's so important for Muslims to understand is you have your way of life. It does not need to be everybody's way of life. Everybody
exactly.
should be able to practice whatever they want in this world, as long as it's not harming another person physically.
Yeah,
You don't get to dictate to the whole global community what we're all going to be. And
yeah,
that's not, it doesn't matter how amazing your local mosque is that they're preaching this to you, or how amazing your favorite Muslim YouTuber is that they're telling you that one day everyone's going to be Muslim. I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. Keep yourself in check. We all have a right to make our own decisions in life. You don't get to dictate to us that we're all going to be Muslim. Some of us don't want to be Muslim. I
yeah,
love Muslims and I love Islam and I love Christians and I love Christianity. Same for Buddhists and for Hindus. I've gotten to know amazing people from all religions. I'm
yeah,
happy and proud as a Jew. I believe in God. I believe in my people. I believe in my religion and elements of it. And I practice it in the way that I want to practice it. You'll never be able to take that away from me. I'll die by that forever. And it's
Yeah.
not right. It's not ethical for you to try to impose that on. I'm not saying every Muslim is, but it's not right for you to try to impose that on planet Earth.
Yeah, but this is why Islam is dangerous, because they think that they can Islamize the whole world, and it's their responsibility to Islamize the whole world because this is in the Quran, and they can't rest until the whole world is Muslim. But then that's why it's very important for people like us to stand up against that ideology.
Correct.
For more brave people, because I know for a fact a lot of people, more people that you think like us. A lot of Arabs think like us. A lot of Persians think like us. But they're scared to come out and say anything. Why? Because in Islam, if you speak about Islam, if you speak against Islam, your punishment is death. You're an apostate. You're a mufsid. So people are stuck in this predicament where if they speak against Islam, especially if they live in these societies in the Middle East, they risk their lives. And that's not a joke. They literally risk their lives. And if they don't risk their lives, they might risk being disowned by their family, for example, not getting any inheritance. So that's why a lot of people stay silent, But, I read something somewhere. It was like, it's only the liars that don't like to be questioned. The truth tellers like to be questioned, and they like to be proven wrong. So if you're telling the truth, then you actually want debate. You actually want people to question you so you can prove your point. It's only the liars that say, no, you cannot question me. You cannot question me, and if you do question me, I'm going to kill you. So that's the sign for any ideology, just for the audience to remember. Anyone that doesn't want you to question them, they are lying to you. Okay, remember
And
that.
look, it's so clear. Like, look,
Yeah.
you're such a great point that you just brought up, bro. Like, look at the pro-Israel side online in the media war, and look at the pro-Palestine side. The pro-Israel side, full of great thinkers, and I'm even saying, I'll even say the pro-Israel side and the people who are neutral on Israel, or just take sort of a middle stance. They're willing to debate. They're willing to talk. They're doing TV show appearances. Who do you have on the pro-Palestine side? Bassem Youssef, who takes a few interviews every once in a while and calls everyone a racist because he's a hypocritical piece of garbage, or Candace Owens, who just become a fully blown anti-Semite. Who do you have on the pro-Palestine side who's outspoken, who's able to defend Palestine? Muhammad Hijab, who's unwilling to debate anybody, or when you get into a debate with him, he just yells at you that you're a racist.
Musab Hassan Youssef. I would love to see Musab Hassan Youssef and Muhammad.
He would destroy him.
Hijab once. I asked him for a debate, and he was like, "I'm too tired." I was like, "Okay." I met him in London, and then he walked off. But I took a picture with him, posted it on my Instagram, and said, "When are we going to debate?" And I got all my fans to basically tag him. He never got back to me, but Muhammad Hijab is just such a disgusting human being. I cannot.
He's
think
horrible.
Of a more despicable human being.
Yeah,
so arrogant, so unclassy, so stupid, and that's what Islam does to a man. He's not stupid. I think he's an Oxford graduate, so by normal terms, but because he's been brainwashed by Islam, the way he thinks is just so absolutely despicable. However, that being said, I want to add a quick caveat to this conversation. I don't agree with everything that Israel does. Okay, overall, I am on the Israel side, but I do think there are some extremist, Jewish, hardline, right-wing people in the Israeli government that some of them are genocidal. Some of them, not all of them, but it's absolutely overstated, So I think Israel has made a few strategic mistakes as well, not just during this war, maybe in the past wars as well. So I don't think they're 100% innocent. But overall, they say the arc of history points towards justice, and I think the arc of history and arc of justice points towards Israel. And Israel is in the right, even though they made some mistakes, but maybe they were provoked to make those mistakes. But at the end of the day, I really hope this war ends very soon. I hope Israel wins. I hope there's peace in the Middle East. Do you think there's going to be a two-state solution, or do you think there's going to be a one-state solution?
I hope there is not a two-state solution, because I think it's a huge mistake. I don't believe in a Palestinian state. I think a Palestinian state, I don't think there's any ethical or moral justification to creating, or historical, but ethics and morals. Where is the morality in creating a 22nd or 23rd Arab ethno state that's going to serve only Arabs and Arabs alone?
But they're not even Palestinians. There's no such thing as Palestine. West Bank are Jordanians, and
Correct.
Gaza are Egyptians.
So where's the justification in doing that, and where is the justification morally to creating a 53rd, 55th Muslim state on planet Earth? We don't need it. It's not necessary.
So do
Arabs
you think
here in
Israel should
Israel
take over
have some
West
of the
Bank?
highest. Sorry.
Do you think Israel should take over Gaza and West Bank, or do you think they
Absolutely.
should just
I
take
don't.
over Gaza?
Gaza's a bit complicated. I think the West Bank should be 100% in our sovereignty. Look, I traveled the West Bank extensively. I've been into Ramallah. I've been into Nablus. I've been deep in Palestinian refugee camps that are, run by Hamas. I've also been in the Jewish settlements. You know, we can't protect Israel without the West Bank. If you see the hilltops of the West Bank, if you stand on the highest hilltops of the West Bank, you have a direct line to Tel Aviv. I mean, in
Mm.
Gaza, strategically, they have to figure out how the mechanics of firing a rocket up and
And down.
over and down from the
So
top
why
of the
don't they
West
do that
Bank,
from West Bank then? Why don't they just directly do like
because
RPG or something?
the Jewish settlements are literally our first line of defense. When you go to the West Bank, you notice that many of the Jewish settlements, they sit higher above the Palestinian settlements, because for every Palestinian village, there's usually a Jewish village above it to protect against that very thing. If the
Mm.
Palestinians want to go up on the hilltops and shoot rockets down, they could very easily. But that's why you have such a high IDF presence in there. The West Bank is full. Don't believe anybody who tells you there isn't extremism there. It is full of Hamas. It is full of terrorists. I've seen it with my own eyes. The West Bank is full of terrorism, and they're armed. They're very, very armed and dangerous. And so
Mm.
I hope
So
that
what
there's
do
a
you
one
think?
state
How do you
solution.
think Israel is gonna? Because there's a lot of so-called Palestinians or Jordanians living in the West Bank. So how do you think that's gonna go down? How do you think Israel can take control of West Bank? Don't you
I
think that's
think
just
that
gonna
there's
kick off another war, like another
yes,
bigger
I,
war than the Gaza war?
I do believe that I believe that our destiny at this point, there's no way to avoid it. I think we're heading towards a civil war, regardless if we want to or not. I think that in the West Bank, at some point in the near future, there's going to be a very, very deadly, bloody war that is inevitable, because Palestinians are arming for it, and so are the
Hmm.
settlers. The settlers know that the Palestinians are arming for it, and so in return, all the settlers are strapped. They all have M16s, AK or not AKs, M4s, Tavors. They're all walking around with guns and with
So
rifles.
do you
The
think this
settlers.
war is gonna continue for the next few years?
I don't know about the Gaza war. I think we're probably getting close to the end of it, depending on what happens when Trump takes effect. If we
Yeah.
actually go full blown strike on the Islamic regime of Iran and end the IRGC once and for all, and maybe
Mm.
somehow help usher in a new age of goodness and prosperity in Iran, I think we'll be looking at a different Middle East. If Trump sort of sits on his hands and his side doesn't allow him to take those drastic actions, which I think is probably what's going to happen. And I do believe that, unfortunately, as great Trump has been on Middle East foreign policy, I don't even think Trump is open minded enough to push for a one state solution. I think that Trump and his
Yeah, and I think that's the problem. I'll be honest with you.
that's a
I'll be honest
problem.
with you. I always thought about this. I only believe in a one-state solution. I just
Correct.
cannot comprehend there being a two-state solution. I just don't think there can be a Palestinian state for a few different reasons. Who's going to govern it? How can you guarantee they're going to be governed correctly? How
Yeah.
do you guarantee it doesn't fall into the hands of a group like Hamas? So on and so forth. And I think that piece of land should just belong. It's not like big. It's very small actually. If you look at it, it's like a city. It's like
It's
it's
tiny.
the size of like Brighton in the UK. It's like the size of Tehran. It's like it's not that big. Like if you look at Israel and you look at how much of Israel is actually taken by the West Bank, it's even smaller. So I feel like
Yeah.
just give them that piece of land. So I honestly I think there can be only a one-state solution. Some people that think that that's extreme. That's not extreme. That's just being a realist, you know.
Yeah.
Or if you want to do a two-state solution, give West Bank to Jordan, and be like, okay, now Jordan is being governed by the West Bank. Maybe take some of the settlements and do a deal with Jordan and give the rest. And Gaza can go and join Egypt, or maybe they can do that canal because they're going to make another canal. Not there's a Suez Canal, and they're thinking to do another one because they're thinking Gaza is rubbles now, so there's no point rebuilding. You might as well like make a canal that goes through this, so you can we can have two routes instead of one. And in terms of IRGC, I just think they will fall in the next 2 to 4 years, and I really hope they do. And I think there's going to be a golden age in the Middle East if these things happen. If the Islamic Republic of Iran falls, and if Israel manages to take control of West Bank and Gaza, then we're
I
gonna
said
have
this on a show. I said this on
yeah,
a show. I was being interviewed the other day by a Jordanian Muslim guy, and I told him I think we're sitting right now, like me and you are part of this equation too. By the way, we're
yeah,
sitting with a lot of potential in our hands right now. Our leaders, I think, are going to try to usher in a new age for us, but it's
Mhm.
going to be in the hands of all of us in the Middle East, all of us Middle Eastern people,
How do we
whether they're
convince people of a one-state solution, though? Like, look, I don't have a fight in this horse. I'm not Jewish and I don't live in Israel, even though I know a lot of Israelis and I have a lot of Israeli, and I would like to visit Israel one day, actually. But I don't have a, they say a horse in this fight or whatever, horse in this race.
horse in
I
this
just
race.
think, yeah, I just don't think, I just do not believe there can be a Palestinian state. And I think the Middle East will do better if there's a one-state solution. It will be better for the whole region, not just for Israel, for the whole
Look,
region.
I don't think we need to be busy with convincing people. I think we just need to do it. I think we just need to do it. The problem is the American administration, I think, is going to be too far in old thinking. They've been so committed to a two-state solution for so long that I think
Mm,
that erasing that from the equation is just not going to happen. And
yeah,
unfortunately, if a two-state solution goes into effect, one, you're going to be rewarding Palestinian terrorism, which is a huge mistake. But two, you'll see very quickly. You'll see very quickly. It'll be the
them
matter of a
regrouping,
couple
yeah,
months to a year or two. There will
yeah,
be a war again, and then we'll have to
yeah,
capture it again, and then we'll start this whole process again. It's not Palestinians
exactly.
cannot govern themselves. They're incapable
Yeah,
of
no,
doing it.
they can't. They can't. And, like they say, if you allow, who do you trust more to govern the land? Do you trust more the Jews or do you trust more the Muslims? And I trust more the Jews because, as you said, they're number one in science, and they governed it very properly, and they're top in science. So I just think there can be only a one-state solution. It can be only better for the Middle East. And once the Islamic Republic falls, which I think will happen in the next 2 to 4 years if Trump imposes the sanctions and also takes out strategic targets. I just think they should have to finish the job. They say either do something properly or don't do it at all. If we leave this war like halfway, okay, let's give West Bank and let's leave the Islamic Republic. As you said, there can be only in the next 1 or 2 years there's going to be another war. So there's no point kicking the can down the road. As they
Yes,
say.
it'll be a huge misstep on the end of Israel, and I'll be very critical of Israel if they do that. But it'll be a huge misstep on the end of the American administration if they decide two-state solution with Israel Gaza and
Mm.
Israel Palestine, and if they decide to be non-interventionist with the Islamic regime of Iran. And again, I can kind of understand where America comes from in that perspective. At least Trump's base is going to be very anti-involvement in Iran, and they're going to
They
put
don't
a
need to
lot
be
of
involved.
pressure.
Just take out their look. The thing is, I spoke about this on
You
GB
kind of
News.
need to, though. It's a
Yeah,
problem.
no. The thing is, even if Afghanistan was a mistake, even you don't need to go and invade Iraq to kill Saddam Hussein. You don't need to go and invade Afghanistan to kill Osama bin Laden. They could have just carpet bombed some Al Qaeda bases. I don't even know, to be honest, why they invaded Afghanistan. I don't know. Maybe they wanted something out of the land. Maybe there were some energy sources. I don't know why they invaded Iraq. Like, that was the most stupid idea. Okay, they wanted the oil, but then they left the oil and then ISIS took it. They didn't need to invade these countries. And the advice I would give to Trump is that you do not need to invade Iran. You do not need to kill civilians. All you need to do, hit strategic military bases,
Yeah.
hit some nuclear facilities, take out head IRGC members, such as Khamenei, such as how you killed Soleimani. Once you do that, the Iranian people will protest, and then Iran would be too concerned, do we fight America or do we stop the protest? That way they'll collapse. And we need a strong opposition, a strong leadership. And as I said, I just don't think the opposition right now is strong enough. We have Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi. He's a good candidate, but I just think he has his own faults. I don't think he's strong enough. I don't think he has a good team of people around him. As I said, I would like to be part of the opposition one day, to be able to go and capture Iran and get rid of the Islamic Republic. But at this moment in time, I just think the opposition are not strong enough. And even if they're like America strikes strategic targets, and even if people protest, and even if the Islamic Republic of Iran falls, who's going to come and take charge? And that's my main concern, because look, same thing that happened in Syria or Iraq can happen to Iran, because in Iran we have Kurds, we have Turks, we have Baluch, we have Persians, we have all kinds of different people, and they all want a piece of land. So all these groups might end up fighting each other. So we might end up with a civil war, which might be even worse than the Islamic Republic. Hence why it's very important to have a strong opposition. I just don't understand why Shahzadeh Reza Pahlavi doesn't have a cabinet already. Like, now it's the time. The Islamic Republic of Iran might fall in the next 1, 2, 3 years. You need to have a cabinet. You need to have a team of 50, 60, 70 people saying, okay, he's my minister of defense. He's my minister of finance. He's my minister of this. And we are a team. And when Iran falls, we'll come and capture it. And then we'll give you a referendum. We'll give you a referendum. Like, okay, do you want a monarchy or do you want a republic? But I just don't see that urgency in him, you know?
Yeah, no, the interior politics of what goes on in Iran. From just speaking to a few people inside of Iran as well, I've understood them, and it's so complicated. And the psyche
Yeah.
behind what a lot of people are feeling there too is really complicated. Because there is a lot of people, believe it or not, while they don't subscribe to Islamism, there's a lot of people who still have mixed emotions on the IRGC. They see some beneficial things that they've done to them, and they're still kind of brainwashed. A lot of people are still
Mm.
kind of stuck in that mindset where they're like, I don't know if I should go, if I should, and if I protest or if I do this, I'm gonna be locked away. My
Yeah, no, they're
family's gonna
scared,
be.
but that's the fear that IRGC sells them. He's like, oh,
Yeah,
if we go, then there's going to be a civil war, just like
I
Iraq,
believe
and
it's
you might
our
have you
duty.
might have a group like ISIS come and take over.
I
Yeah,
believe it's our duty, Israel and America. I'm a dual citizen of Israel and the U.S. I
yeah,
believe put together a strong coalition,
yeah,
force, take it down, remove the
yeah,
IRGC, remove it.
yeah.
Obviously,
But
you're
also
right.
have a
There needs
backup plan.
there
Also
needs to be
have
a backup.
someone that can come and take control,
Absolutely, I agree with you. You can't just go in balls to the wall and destroy
yeah,
everything and raise hell.
and then just
But
leave
we
it. Yeah.
have to take that stance. Like Trump, he has to get into office and make it clear the IRGC will be no more. And my biggest fear is actually, I don't think that that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to be the message that's going to be sent, unfortunately. I think it's going to be
Okay.
more anti-intervention.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll see. We shall watch with great interest. I think we have
Yes.
a golden age in the next 4 years with Trump in power. I really
Fingers
think the
crossed.
world will change a lot in the next 4 years, not just in the Middle East, just in all aspects, whether it is the fall of establishment politicians, the fall of mainstream media, the rise of AI, the restructuring of the Middle East. A lot of things are happening right now and will happen in the next 2 to 4 years. So we shall watch on with great interest. Any other things you would like to add?
That's all, brother. I'm also very optimistic about January 20th and the new age that this potentially ushers in for all of us, people around the world. I'm excited for us to hopefully get back to focusing on bettering this region. I think that we have
Yeah,
a region of absolute gold in our hands. We have the
yeah,
ability, we have the best beaches, the best islands, the best nature, the best people, the greatest minds, and the greatest history on planet Earth in this region. The Middle East and North Africa can come together to be the most powerful region on planet Earth with prosperity and wealth and happiness for everyone. It's my biggest dream to see it, my biggest dream. And as somebody who spent my 10 years traveling the world, my biggest
mhm,
dream would be to start a road trip in Morocco and finish in Tehran. That's my dream.
exactly.
I want to do that. I want to see that come to truth one day. So hopefully in the next 4 years, we start seeing some changes in that direction.
Mr. Tal Oran, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Thank you. Till next time, guys. Bye bye.